You know, there there were some things that you had mentioned, and you talked about learning from, I believe it was from Egyptian masters. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So um, during I was taught how to work through clearing trauma, facing fear, and how to balance your energies through clearing your energy system. And initially, I was under the impression I was being taught by my higher self, but then I started being taught because I use automatic meditation, moving meditation, where I allow the energies to move my body in the position that is required for the work. um, I was being put in these strange postures. I'd been doing yoga for 10 years and I was practicing on my own at home. And I was being put in these weird postures, which I'd never seen before because I'd always practiced this Indian hatha yoga. Um, so it was quite strange. And so I went and looked it up and realized, oh, wow, this is Egyptian yoga, which is like the original. There's only 24 postures, and it was the original yoga that was taught back in Egyptian times. And when I was last in Egypt, I saw these postures displayed in the hieroglyphs on the walls. You can actually see them there. And I was just like, wow, so amazed. And the more I dug into, I learned more and more about the Egyptian teachings, etc. And I realized the experiences that I'd had previously and the material that I had been teaching was the same stuff that had been taught 10,000 years and before that. So
Okay.
it stretches back to that. And the more I worked with these energies, I suddenly came to realize that I was being taught by Anubis and by um, Thoth, who's the one with the ibis head.
Mhm.
He's the intellect, he's the scribe, he's the guy with all the wisdom. What I
Okay.
didn't realize at the time was that he actually ascended. He's an actual person. He wasn't this, he was treated as a god because of his knowledge, but he actually ascended during the Atlantean times. And he had chosen to stay and help mankind to raise their frequency and to rise out of fear. And as he says, there's only one lesson for mankind, and that is to overcome fear. Because once you overcome fear, then everything is possible.
Mhm.
So, and it just went on from there, and we've met since, and I just tremendous, such a kind, and he's channeled through me to some of my friends and teaching them on certain aspects, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel privileged. At that time, I feel, is this real? Because it's
Mhm.
just such a fantastic
Mhm.
story, you know, if you don't know
Yeah.
anything about it.
Yeah, very nice. See, there were a few things that really resonated with me. One, I'm very drawn to the Egyptian culture. You mentioned yoga, and you said there were 24 different positions from Egypt. Is that right? That's the first.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the yoga tradition there. What I do know is that the yoga positions, move your body in a certain way, which allows your body to hold more frequencies. Um,
So yes.
you agree
So
with that?
yeah, absolutely. So yoga itself, I'm a very big advocate of yoga, but the integral yoga,
Mhm.
because the yoga that we are taught in the Western world is more about being flexible and being bendy and looking good physically. What we forget is that yoga has many disciplines. And the term yoga itself means to yoke, which means to connect. So the original message was to connect the lower self with the higher self using these teachings. And it's about wisdom teachings, which is studying ancient scriptures or any information that empowers you and causes you to go within, causes you to contemplate something you read that you get a wow moment, and you go away and contemplate this or meditate on this information. So that's what the teachings were originally designed for, is to cause people to go within and to understand what those teachings meant for the individual. So there was the wisdom teachings. Then there was the tantric teachings, which was the postures, the positions. And as you say, the positions were designed for, it's like if you hold a sponge that's full of dirt and water and a dirty sponge, and you hold it under the tap and you run the water, that dirt is going to remain, but if you squeeze the sponge and you let go, every time you squeeze the sponge, you expel the old energy, you expel the dirt, and you're allowing the new fresh water, the fresh energy to fill the sponge. And this is what yoga postures were meant to. So we squeeze the body and we break down the old frequencies, the blockages. And in breaking down those blockages, they come to mind through expression, through the third eye, and we see why those blockages are there. And then we're able to work on those to change the frequency. And in that way, we raise our vibration. So it's all about that aspect. So yoga is an integral practice, not one single discipline. So it's important for it to be effective, to be used in that manner. So that was the original Egyptian yoga, was called Smai Tawi, which means to yoga, to connect.
Well, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah.
Can you go into a little bit more about Thoth? And you said that you mentioned channeling. Can you describe what that is like for you and what messages come through for you?
Yeah. So it was about 18 months ago, and I had a message come through that said, the house of wisdom has been attained. And at the time, I didn't think too much of it. And I thought, I wonder what this house of wisdom is about. So I went off and did a meditation and dug deep. And I found that this house of meditation is like the Akashic records, but it's my own personal space in the ether. And only I have access to this space unless I give permission for someone else to join me. So it's like a sacred space. And in this space is all my history from all lives across all dimensions, everything from my birth as an I am entity. So all my experiences within all universes are contained within this place called the House of Wisdom. This is what it was said. I was told, the House of Wisdom has been attained. And the more I dug into visiting this place, I use it now as a jump gate. So whenever I want to travel out of body, or I want to go visit my relatives on other dimensions, etc., I use that as a jump point. There's a portal within the house that takes me where I can navigate to different places. So the fact that the term was used, the House of Wisdom has been attained, gave me a bit of a clue, because later on, the more and more as I learned about Thoth, is that he doesn't talk about enlightenment, he talks about the path of attainment. So we attain, and I've always seen enlightenment as a journey, not a destination. I see it that we become more and more enlightened as we travel and as we evolve down this path. He talks about the path of attainment, which is we are attaining more and more awareness as we're moving down. So I married these two up and I realized, oh, okay, so this is interesting. And then one day I arrived, I decided to go back to the House of Wisdom. And as I walked up, there's a couple of gangplanks that walks up, and it's like an old Chinese, Japanese house, with the bent roofs, and it's like a big barn with a big door with a blue light shining out through the front. And as I got to the top, there's a huge veranda space. And I saw, oh, somebody's here. This is unusual. I wonder why that is. And as I got closer, I realized it was Anubis that was standing by the door. He started working with me back in 07 when I was doing healing energy or energy exercises sessions. He would give me energy and I would pass that on to the client, etc. So I knew him from that. He doesn't talk. You just feel this presence, and he's just this energy, this powerful presence. So I saw him, I thought, oh, I wonder what he's doing here. So I walked up to him, and we just turned and walked in because we just knew where we were going. And as I walked inside, I found myself not in my place, but I found myself in this Egyptian temple. So if you look at the image behind me, it was like that. It was these pillars, rows and rows of pillars. And I was like, what's happened to my place? This is not my place. So we walked in right into the center of this huge temple. And it was this large pool, like half the size of an Olympic swimming pool, but not very deep, probably like, a few inches deep. So he led me to the edge of the pool and then walked off. So I thought, okay, I'll just sit down and put my feet in the water, nice warm water. Next thing, Thoth appeared. I was like, oh, okay. So he walked up and sat on my left, also with his legs in the water. And we started to talk about energy upgrades and about what I've been up to, etc. And as you mentioned earlier, sometimes you do so many things that you actually lose some of it. It just evaporates. But there are some points that actually stand out. And the one point that stood out was with his left hand, he suddenly lifted his left hand up, and there was this huge ball of energy in his hand. And he reached across and he just put this into my chest. And as he did that, I could feel, I said, whoa, okay, this is happening. And he took his hand away, and I understood there was an energetic upgrade instantaneously. It was just transmitted. That wasn't what it was. And I said to him, so when does this upgrade take effect? His answer was simply, you will know. There's always these strange, incomplete but complete sentences where you instantaneously know the rest of the story. He gives you half the story, and you automatically, intuitively know the rest of the
That's part
story.
of the
And then he
trust,
got up and
that's part of the
absolutely,
it's part of the trusting, and I can relate a little bit to your story, not that that's happened to me, but similar where I have gotten attunements for the emotional and spiritual energetic system. And I was just told, you will be prepared whenever you need this now. And I think that over the last couple years, especially over this last year, is whenever we've needed those extra boosts, and I believe that's what's propelling us forward. So maybe the large energy ball which you received was part of that. Has anything come to your awareness of what that was, and how you're utilizing it today, or if you have utilized that yet?
yeah, I think it was, I don't think it was anything specific. I think it was just the general lift, as you say, a general lift that picks you up, picks your entire frequency up in general. Nothing dramatically changed, although I'm highly sensitive and I feel energy changes quite actively. And I do feel, especially like in the last couple of days, it's just gone, whoa, crazy stuff. So I'm quite sensitive to that. But it wasn't anything specific at the time. As I say, he got up and walked off. And as he was walking away, he started to fade. And I took the opportunity to ask a cheeky question. I thought, he's here. I'm going to ask something. So I said, by the way, could you show me what you looked like when you were incarnate? And as he was walking off, he just turned over his left shoulder and he said to me, that's not important. And I was like, whoa, okay, I understand. Okay, I'm going to back off. But the funny thing is, and then he said to me, Anubis will see you out. And as I turned, he was standing there. And so I got up, walked out. And as we walked out the main entrance, the strangest thing happened because, as I say, Anubis doesn't normally talk. He's just the presence, and you just instantly know what's going on. It's just this automatic communication. He reached out and actually gave me a hug. I was like, what the heck? This doesn't happen. This does, and he said to me, goodbye, my friend. I was like, wow, and he speaks as well. So tremendous experience. But 2 weeks after that, I was doing a meditation and suddenly I had this vision of this person, sort of from 3/4 from the back, with really, really dark hair, long hair, probably the same length as yourself, but it was tied in a very low ponytail, single, really low at the bottom of the head. And suddenly I realized, oh wow, this is Thoth incarnate. I thought, what did I do to deserve this? Apparently it wasn't important at the time. But suddenly here I'm being shown, not from the front, but from the back. I was okay, I respect that. And literally a week later, another vision where I actually saw him from the side. I was like, wow, now I'm really feeling like the Inner Circle Club now. And I could see, the Egyptian painting of the eyes that they do. It was like that, and this dark jet black hair that was tied back. And it's one of those things that once you see something, that it's something that you never forget. Just, just the privilege of, apparently I'm privileged at the level that I was allowed to see that. So really great. But really gentle energy. You think, because he's been known in various guises throughout history, the Greeks called him Hermes the thrice born. And the reason why they called him that was because the translation was actually master of masters of masters. So the 3 times master. It's like emphasizing sort of the greatness of the teachings, of the information that they held in regard, both in Egypt and in Greek times as well. But even that, this gentleness, and I've heard people say, will he incarnate again? And the answer is no, because what's happening now is he's actually, his mission is to help mankind to evolve. He talks about mankind having cycles. Hundreds of thousands of years, this cycle of birth and death of nations, of peoples, has happened many times on Earth. We are just one example that's happened, one historic example. And this time his mission is to give of himself energetically to people like myself that can teach the information. So he's spread himself thin in order to reach more people instead of arriving just as one individual. And we all know what happens when one individual comes up and says, I can show you this, and immediately put down. But if you spread the information, you come from the inside, then it's more readily accepted. But the day he came here, I was helping a friend with some fear-based and some trauma experiences. And she was kneeling down on the yoga mat, and I was next to her, knelt down. And all of a sudden, I felt this big pillar of light appear to my left and just behind her. And huge, all 10 feet tall, this golden, bright golden light. And then I saw that it wasn't just a light, there was actually someone there. And it turns out it was him. And when I teach, normally I have the knowledge I know, but I rely heavily on connection, on what I call using the flow. And I have information that arrives, and a lot of the times I end up channeling information which is specific to that particular client. And this happened. I felt the flow, the energy. It's like a river. It starts to flow into me, and I can feel the chance of, oh, okay, incoming. And then I started to talk, and then my speech was taken over, and it was a very gentle, kind, soft voice that was talking to my friend and saying, you should do this, and you'll practice, and then you should do that. And then the next day, go ahead and do this. And it was very, very well explained on exactly how to proceed going forward. And it turns out it was him actually talking through me, which I only realized afterwards. I was like, wow, just so soft and gentle, but at the same time commanding such a presence. It's unmistakable. So yeah, it's great. We've had a few interactions like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so
at
have
times
you
it still feels like a dream.
Yeah. Have you
And
been to
I have to
Egypt
pinch myself,
before?
is this real?
How
Am I
do
doing
you?
this? Some of the material, some of the ways I teach how to clear energy is exactly the way we taught. And I'm like, whoa, it's just mind-blowing stuff.
Mhm.
But it's great because it works. It worked for me, it's worked for other people. So I'm just really grateful that privileged that my mission is working. And I'm fulfilling the my task, as it were.
Mhm.
Oh, and you're back.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of internet connections
I
here.
saw. I
Looks
thought you were
okay
looking at me
now.
the same way for quite a while. When
Yeah.
did you lose me? Do you remember?
Oh, just like 1 minute ago. It
Oh,
went off and it came right back on.
okay.
So, yes, I've heard everything that you said. Your connection with Egypt, have you been to Egypt before? Why do you think that you have such a strong connection to Thoth? Why was it something you've studied or he just appeared to you?
Um, so there's a background story. So I came incarnated now at this time to help with this. This is my mission to help with, and I think it's part of that reason that I'm connecting at this level, because the information as he describes it is always been. It became lost. Atlantis failed because the information was used the wrong way. Instead of going within with the information, they went without. They went into technology with it. So they, they became too technological and it failed because of that. And this is what he's trying to avoid, to help to guide us to say, look, you need to go within. And this is the message, to go within, to use this powerful information and to go within. So, and I think that's the reason um, why I've been gifted this information to work with. Yes, I have incarnated in Egypt, and I know of 2 lives that I've had there, but it wasn't in the times where he was there. It was after that. Um, when he left Atlantis, he went what's called into the land of Kem, which is the original name of Egypt. And at the time, there was nothing. It was just nothing. And he basically built, with information, raised the awareness and built the Egyptian um, people, nation, the area from there. And he built from there. And this is going back 26,000 years, something like that, around that period, where at its grassroots, when it really started, um, built from there. But for myself, I know for a fact that my beginning of my incarnation was in Egypt. I did not incarnate before that. Some people will incarnate in all these different areas, but in my particular case, I know for a fact that because I came in here for a particular reason, I only incarnated in a certain window. But at the same time, I had to incarnate in all these different eras so I could learn how to be human and be believed as being humans, so that I could understand and I could be compassionate and I could have insight, and then integrate the knowledge and then be able to use that knowledge to work with it. So apparently I don't normally incarnate that in this dimension. Normally I'm working in other dimensions. As I've been led to believe, it's because of the emergency after the atomic attacks on Japan sent a shockwave through the universe, and it was like, whoa, okay, this is getting real now. So there was a mad rush, and people like myself volunteered to come in and say, we need to try and change awareness from inside to try and avoid the potential apocalypse that could be potentially looming in the future. So there's been this internal, almost like a secret service working from the inside to help to change the mindset by raising awareness. And there's, I believe, more than 10,000 people that came in with the specific mission to try and change this path. So I think that's why, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this information, I'm sure it's, it's spread evenly, but I haven't met anybody yet exactly with the same. So who knows? Maybe I might bump into someone tomorrow.
Yeah, I feel like that people are getting downloaded and have guides to help them with. I feel like we're all on similar missions, but we may have different guides. Um, it may be a little bit different the way we
Absolutely.
approach it, but definitely, you had talked about living from the inside out, everything from the inside. And then you'd also talked about fear, overcoming fear. And those are a lot of the messages I send out as well, although I'm not guided by the same spiritual guides you are. Um, but why don't we talk a little bit about the fear, like overcoming fear and why that's so important for people to understand?
Yeah. I think what there's a big majority of people that are awakened and some not awakened, as it were. Um, those that are not what we classify as awakened tend to live in this world that don't realize. Those that are awakened, there's still a number, a percentage that don't really understand the foundation of this dimension, and I like to call it the law of this dimension. The law is the structure what holds this dimension. So it's made up in a certain way, and when you enter, it's like you need to obey those laws. It works. This is how it works. So when we arrive, we then get taught this is how it works, and it's a fear-based experience. And this is where we are. We're in a fear-based experience, and we arrive innocent, clean slate, and we are taught that you are less than the bank manager. You are less than the government. And this empowers us because we believe we come in innocently, believing that we are equal. And we are told you are not equal. And it's in that telling, it's in that giving the message from society, from our parents, that we eventually give up that personal power. We say, I surrender. I can't fight the system. I'm too little. I'm not worthy. So the self-worth literally goes out the window. And that's the first step of signing up to the fear-based experience, to feeling less. And from then it's a spiral. Some people spiral further down. Some people remain buoyant. Some people rise. The numbers of experiences are as many as there are people on the planet. But we are still within the fear-based reality. So our mission, and as Thoth said, our only lesson in this world as human beings is to overcome fear. Once you overcome fear, everything is possible. And this is when you can rise out of the third dimension, out of the fear-based, because once you go outside the third dimension, there is no fear. And people talk about, oh, aliens are going to come and invade and scary stuff and this stuff. Guys, no. I have loads of alien friends I've met on ships, and the scariest ones you can think of, best friends, there's no fear. When I see them, I'm like, I don't go, oh my God, and hide around the corner. No, it's just, there is no fear. It's not the same universe. It's a different experience. And this is what people don't understand. So we've been indoctrinated. We've been told you are less and you should believe in this, that you are less. And we do. And the problem is that the media has helped to concrete that. Hollywood has found ways to make fear bigger, devised ways to destroy people and kill people and make people fearful in a way that we enjoy, and fear sells. So we end up digging deeper into fear and subscribing to fear without even realizing we are actually enjoying it. So finding a way out from that is really, really difficult. It's really difficult. It takes time. And unless you're guided, unless you have, as you said yourself, unless you have guidance from guides or source or wherever you get your inspiration, or from people that that can say, hang on a minute, what about this? What about doing things this way? Unless you have that little spark that
Mhm.
seed that gets planted, you have no hope of ever getting out of it. So yeah, yourself, myself, we're here to hopefully plant that seed here and there, and people go, oh, hang on a minute, tell me about this. What is that? And this is the opportunity that we can, help those people, to learn more.
Yeah, I think the social we've been socially conditioned, right?
Yes.
On how our society should run. And then you realize one day, because I was part of that as well. And then one day I realized, wait a minute, there's more. There's much more to life. And that's whenever I started just studying, because I wanted to intellectually learn first, like what is more to my life, to this world. And then after that, then then you get to the spiritual component of it. Um, but people may not realize that. They're like, fear-based, what does that mean? They may not realize that they're in this fear-based society
Yeah,
where they've given their power because they're socially conditioned, and some people may think that's just totally normal right now, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of going within to feel better about ourselves, oh, I'll go buy a new car. I'm externalizing more and more. And our fast-paced, instantaneous, I want it today world is guaranteeing that. Is guaranteeing that we stay outside ourselves. And this is the danger.
Mhm.
Therefore, we don't look within because we can, oh, I have enough money, I'll just go buy happiness. And as we know, that's only that only lasts the honeymoon period 6 months or so, and you go, ah, this car's, I need to get a new one. And we get in, I'll get a new TV, I'll get a new this, but it's all externalizing, 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 not
Mhm.
realizing that we're actually walking away from ourselves, walking away from self-worth, walking away from love, personal love. So yeah, it's just that distancing. But hey, you know what? It's some people, it's their path, it's their journey, it's their lesson, it's their experience. And sometimes that can be very hard to watch because you may know better, but you have no right to interfere,
Mhm.
because then you start incurring penalties for interfering in a soul's path. So I, I, I have a saying that I like to say at times is that the more you know, the less you can say a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And that can be quite a disciplinary thing that you need to control, be patient, be still, and wait for someone to ask you the question
Mhm.
instead of standing on the street corner and holding up the placards, and then that's just the downward spiral, as we know. So it's hard. It's been a hard road, I must say, but
Mhm.
also at the same time rewarding. The rewards that come are really good, with being on a particularly difficult pathway.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you brought that up, not to interfere with anyone else's journey, but to be available if people want to ask questions and learn more, right?
Yes.
That's what we're
Yes.
doing, is we're
Correct.
making ourselves available if people want to ask questions. Um, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about, you mentioned the other dimensions, um, going inwards. Is there anything that you can you put it into words? Can you describe it a little bit so people may understand what you're referring to, the other dimensions?
Yeah. So part of I experienced these other dimensions because of the path I followed of evolutionary path. I had my first awakening back in 94. Then I had a second Kundalini awakening back in 2017, early 2017, which opened me up tremendous. I mean, the force of the full-blown Kundalini is just like, wow. Just, it's like someone stuck a fireman's hose up your butt and turned it on to the max, and it's just like you just can't move, you're just frozen, and it's just this white energy that's just ripping through you. It's just tremendous experience. And that causes your energy centers just to go, whoa, and suddenly you get all these, you can see, you can see things, you can feel things. And this is where I started to see and have these experiences. As I mentioned to you earlier, I had my partner from the fifth dimension that came here and stood in front of me in my home. I was like, wow, literally this far. And she actually held me and hugged me. I was in floods of tears. It was just because the love and that you experience outside this dimension. It's just, as human beings, we think we know what love is, but we don't. This real, beautiful, true, it's just completely encompassing. It's a really magical experience. It's something that once you're in it, you don't want to leave. You just want to stay. So I had loads of experiences like that, and over the period of 2 weeks, she came and went, and we went up together onto ships and traveled together in different places and things. Truly magical, sort of Hollywood movie type stuff. I was thought I should make a movie out of this. It'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a bit like that. And while I was doing my practice, I had these aliens looking at me through my window. They were looking, and because they were amazed, I could feel their jealousy. They wanted to be doing what I was busy doing energy work. They wanted to be doing what I was doing because they're not able to do this, because they're not in this dimension. They were observing from the other dimension, from the other side. And that day I came home from work, and as I walked up to my front door, I could feel this weird high frequency. I was like, that's weird. I stepped back a few feet, nothing. Stepped forward, and it's like I stepped into this column of energy. And I realized, aha, somebody's here. Somebody's upstairs. And I was half expecting to be pulled up, but nothing happened. So I went inside, and I went into the same area above my front door on the top floor. And I could still feel this energy. And I didn't get much more of that. So as I usually did, I went onto my yoga mat and started doing my practice and doing the energy work. And at one stage, I was just standing still and calm and relaxed. And I felt this hand on my shoulder. I was like, the hairs on the back of my head went bing. It's like, whoa, somebody's here. It was literally someone standing behind me. And then I felt these two hands put their under each of my elbows and literally lifting my arms up in front of me like this, and then moving them to the side, and basically wanting to work with me with the energy, wanting to be part of that experience. It was such a weird experience.
Yeah, so whenever you said you felt that, so you could feel it physically in here on the 3D plane, in the 3D
Yeah,
earth, were you able to see or just feel the hands moving you, guiding you?
I could feel it because I got to a stage where I can feel my physical body and my light body. If I stop moving,
Hmm.
within seconds, I can feel my light body. So I've sort of got this awareness of both sides. That makes sense. So that interaction from that dimension, I can feel it as if it was in this dimension.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense. I have similar experiences, more
yeah,
so with the healing of my feet and rubbing of my feet and holding of my hands. You can feel all of that here.
yeah,
And it's phenomenal.
it's amazing. It's truly an
Mhm,
amazing experience. But the
mhm,
one weird thing which I wasn't expecting is that I could actually smell what that person smelled like.
mhm,
That was like that was completely left field. I was just like, whoa,
mhm.
really, really strange.
Yeah.
But so as I went on with my practice and evolved and incorporated more of these teachings, I realized that I needed to teach people meditations on how to access those frequencies. Because what we don't readily understand as human beings, and even people that teach at this level, don't potentially don't have the complete mechanical engineering, insight into what it works. And that's my forte. I can, as an engineer of brain, I can break things down into little bits. If you don't understand, I will break it down even more. I just magically can do that. So when I do research and people say, how do you do research? And well, I work with energy, and I'll send energy this way, and then I'll send it that way, and then this way, and then I'll measure the difference. And I see I'm doing that kind of research, which is, I love doing that. So I realized that as energy beings, which we are,
Mm-hmm.
we measure our experience in this universe, in this dimension, as a frequency, but we understand it as a feeling. So we talk about feelings, but those feelings are just an understanding of and a measurement of frequency, of energy.
Yeah. And I think
Frequency.
another way people describe that is they refer to it as their vibration, that frequency that
Yes.
you're in, that feeling, right? That emotional. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So I realized that we needed to understand more. And as I did this practice and I worked with my master teacher, I started to look into high frequency meditations, how to access those frequencies. And I came up with two aspects which takes us to the edge of that highest frequency. And that is understanding what it is to be in allowance, to allow. What is allowance? People say, yeah, to allow. So I'll allow you to do that. Yeah. And there's more to it. There's much more to it.
Hmm.
Because allowance is a place, it's a frequency. Once you know where allowance is, frequency-wise, you have a reference point. Once you know where it is, you can go back there every single time. So in my meditations, Universal Truths, I teach you what allowance is and how to use it, but what's its frequency? So I can act in meditation, I can go to allowance because I know what it feels like as a frequency.
Hmm.
Then we go even deeper, we go into surrender, which is the ultimate place. I see like a cross section of the ocean. Above the ocean surface is a waking conscious state where you and I are talking. In the first 30 feet or so is the state of allowance. It's a layer. The rest of the ocean is surrender. From my personal experience, once you go into surrender, this is where you start exploring. This is where the universe reveals itself to you, reveals the secrets, because then you can navigate and go to within surrender. And this is where you make these discoveries. But unless you know what the frequency is, what it feels like to be in surrender, you do not have a reference point. You do not know how to get there. And this is what I teach is, how do you get to surrender? Well, first you need to go through allowance, which is a frequency, which is a dimension. Because dimension is not strictly black and white like ice cream colors. No, it's just one constant smooth, but it changes. And this is why we struggle to gain those reference point, because it's that smooth, it's that subtle. We don't know where to start. There's no actual demarcation of where it is. So we need to rely on, how does it feel? How does it feel to be in allowance? How does it feel to be in surrender? How do I transition from allowance to surrender? Once I get the reference point, how do I maintain that reference point? I was teaching a lady back in Pennsylvania a few months ago. She was getting to surrender, but she kept bobbing back out, like bobbing for apples. And I had to teach her how to remain in surrender. It's
Hmm.
not rocket science, but unless you are shown how to do this, how to get a reference point. And once you understand how to get a reference point within frequency, then you can just do things. It's just getting the reference point. It's like you now have the book and okay, now I know how to do that. I'll move to the next thing. And it's how
Yeah.
you go on.
And I think we're in remarkable times right now. The era that we're in right now. where we can do extraordinary things, um, that maybe we've only dreamed of in the past.
Absolutely. And mankind is evolving, and with mankind, so is meditation,
Mhm.
and so is frequency. And where before we would see, if you try to see a problem, solve a problem, and you're at the same level as the problem, you cannot solve the problem. You can only solve the problem once you raise slightly above and you get a picture of the whole problem,
Mhm.
not just the side. And this is what we do without realizing it, is we increase our frequency so we can look down and go, oh wow, I get that now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's a case of, but how do you raise your frequency? How do you raise your vibration? That's the secret. How do we do that? We have to offload the fear. We have to offload the trauma that keeps us anchored. It's like a ship's anchor that's keeping you from getting up to the next level to see that problem. Yeah. So, and that's about facing the self. And it's about becoming your own counselor, as people say, doing the inner work. It's a scary place, and I've met people that just refuse to do this. They say, no, I'm not doing it. It's the toughest thing. When people come on the course, I say, look, this is the toughest thing you will ever do in any lifetime. Because what we effectively are doing is we are doing a life review. Yeah. We're doing a life review not only of this life, but of all your lives in this dimension. Because they all need to come together as one, then you will be able to ascend. We don't leave anybody behind. You cannot leave of yourself behind. So all the fears and all the traumas need to be brought, and we bring them all together, and we work on those, and we resolve those. And every time you resolve something, you move up a notch. You resolve something else, you move up another notch. And you're able to see others and resolve those, and then you move up another notch. So it's a process.
It is a process, and I feel like that once you just get started, I haven't went through your methodology, but I feel like once people get started, then it gets much easier. It's just getting
Yes.
started and getting through that first layer first, and then
Yep.
you understand a little bit more,
Yes.
and then it gets easier, and then it becomes more joyful, then it becomes more
Absolutely.
fun, then it becomes more exploratory.
Correct.
It's just getting through that first, that first layer because it could be so unknown for us. The process could be so unknown. And now you had mentioned you have a methodology for this. And did you put this to I can follow along a little bit with what you're saying. Did you put this together all by yourself? Was this information handed over from spiritual guides and mentors or from spiritual guides or mentors here that you've learned from?
So it's been a combination. So for myself, from early on in my spiritual awakening in 94, for some reason I said, I don't want any guides, nobody to interfere. I will only accept to work with my higher self. And I don't know why I did that. Now I know why I did that, but then I was just like, no, I'll only work with direct. Why work with the guy in the middle when you can go straight to the top? That was my sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's what I did. I aimed for that. I aimed for that. What I didn't realize at the time is that, as I described earlier, all those other lives that I'd had, some of those skills I brought with me. One of them was psychology. From the early 1900s, I was a doctor in Belgium. You can still see the house. So I had that. I've never learned psychology, but I just bang, 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 bang. It just works. It just comes. The other one is meditation. I've had several lives in Tibet and in the East. For me, meditation just came bang, easy, boom, teach, no worries. So I've had these tools that I brought with me that helped me on this path. And while I was doing that, then I started to connect. As I raised my frequency, I started to get connection with the bigger guys upstairs, the masters. I had a very short Japanese healer that taught me to heal and to work with energy, moving meditation. when I do healing, and it looks like I'm doing Tai Chi. So I was like, what is this? And it was this Japanese man that taught me all these things. So I had that influence. And then, of course, with the Egyptian side, I started to teach intuitively after these downloads, and I realized that there was more to it. These downloads were just random. So they all sort of married up together. So some of the information I brought with me, and some of it was given to me, along the path.
Yeah. And I feel like we're getting downloaded with higher frequencies now, more codes that are available to us, and I can feel my body's frequency raising as well just from the downloads. How about you?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm busy writing my third book about this is what happened today, these are the changes, and this is what happened tomorrow.
Mhm.
So, and I can clearly see, and I go back when I start doing the editing, go back and read, and I can like, whoa, I don't remember writing that. Oh wow, this is amazing. It's like, going back and reading your old journal. It's like, oh wow, I forgot, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
So it's like a discovery, and it's like realizing, wow, I didn't realize that this was the progress that was made. So
Mhm.
yeah, all the time. But it gets so strong, and I'm thinking the energy just can't get any stronger. It's impossible. And then until it does, you know, it's like my light body feels almost as tangible as my physical body. It's just
Mhm.
like strong, you know, and moving awareness into the light body, back into the physical body, and that transition. I've seen my light body was such a weird thing. I saw that I'm actually about this much taller. My feet were actually this much further past my feet, and my head as well. And it's just crazy, but tremendous to have that level of insight. It's just, for me, it's what drives me. I'm like an explorer. I'm like the Indiana Jones of the you know of the energy world. I just love this stuff.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
So Universal Truths, your friend, and that's universaltruths.com. Is that how can people find you?
So it's universaltruth.co.uk.
Okay. And we'll also
Um,
put that below the video as well. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about what services you offer? People can find you through
okay.
your website if there's other places that people can touch in with you.
Yeah. So I have my website, universaltruths.co.uk. I also have a business page on Facebook. I have a Facebook group that I use to share information with people that want to keep up to date or share experiences as well. I also have a Instagram channel that I also update as well. TikTok, which I've started recently, posting some snips from other podcasts that I've had. Um, and funny with the podcasting, I had a chap um, in Vegas that I did a podcast with, and he actively sees energy, and he says, wow, I can see 7 different levels of energy of Thoth within you. I was like, what? So he actually saw that. I was like, oh wow, it was just like tremendous. But yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel, doesn't have many videos, but it's got helpful things, some short meditations, which you can access through my website. You can just access the tab. You can also see other podcasts that I've had through that as well. I've got 2 books out which can be accessed through my website, printed and digital across all big platforms around the world. So wherever you are, all the big brands will stock my books. The first one is about the tools on how to help yourself, how to evolve, and how to shake off the fear, how to release trauma, breathing techniques, energy work, surrender, allowance, moving meditation. So all the topics that I cover on the course. Um, and then, of course, you're free to connect at any time. I'm here to help. We've got different programs. We've got the full-blown course, which runs over 20 hours, intensive one-to-one with myself. And then we've got smaller courses, modules, and then I've got a monthly subscription for those that aren't in a financial position to commit to the bigger course. where they can donate, and then we can arrange to have so many hours per month together where we can share and help each other. So yeah, it's about, for me, it's about empowering people, because this is what we came to do, right?
Yes, came to empower people. Well, thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for participating on the podcast.
Yeah,
Um, we appreciate you and your time, and we'll make
yeah.
sure that we put your contact information below the video.
Yeah, just one last thing I forgot to mention is that I also do regression, um, but I tend to use regression only as a tool to assist someone who's struggling with trauma. I don't just do regression for as a party trick to see, oh, which life that I have here or there.
Mhm.
It's strictly as a tool to help someone that's really, really struggling to release some trauma. So there's that service as well. So, but it's all listed on the under the services on the website. But
Okay.
thank you for the opportunity. It was great.
Yes, thank you.
Very kind of you to have me on board.